this is Lamenter's Jail, and this video is a full moveset guide for Radagon and the Elden Beast, the final boss of Elden Ring, just showing off all of the moves that they have and how to react to them the most optimal way without getting hit, just so you can beat these guys on your level 1 no weapon upgrades challenge run character. I mean, casual players will find this guide useful as well. It's probably just got a lot more detail than you're used to with like a casual guide. But before I got into the moveset, I did want to show off the easiest possible way to beat these guys on a level 1 character with no weapon upgrades, just basically skipping the fight in case you don't want to learn it, but you still want to just like jump into a New Game Plus run or something like that. You do need the Hand of Malenia to accomplish this glitch method to beat them, but you can beat Malenia herself with a different glitch method that doesn't require any skill at all either, so don't let that intimidate you too much. There is a link in the description to my Malenia guide where I describe that easy method to beat her as well, so check that out if you want. But basically you just use the Ash of War, the waterfowl dance, on the Hand of Malenia to do some parkour and get over to like underneath the map safely. And then you just run on the cliffside and underneath the Elden Throne arena and just get to basically inside of the Erd tree where you can kind of clip through the wall because you're not supposed to be down here, so there's no actual physical boundaries on any of these walls. And you can then just kind of like fall off a cliff and make sure that you're holding the heal spell, just not actually using it, but just like holding it to prepare to use it, charging it up or whatever. And as long as you hold that spell while you're falling down into the abyss underneath the Erd tree, eventually the Elden Beast will just die from the glitch, and you'll be spawned into the Radagon fight where he will kill you, and I don't know, because Elden Beast is dead when Radagon kills you, it just kills him as well, I guess. And then you spawn into the arena after he's dead. I guess the game assumes that you've beaten them both at this point, so you can just finish the game. It does take a minute or two of actual falling for the Elden Beast to die of the glitch, but it does work pretty consistently and it's not very difficult to do. You will want to walk over to this specific spot that you saw my character fall off the cliff on in this example clip here, because if you fall off in a different spot of the cliff, you could run into like a death wall or some kind of like invisible barrier that you land on top of and then die. It's just not super safe to fall off in other spots, so if you fall off in this one spot after running a little bit up the cliffside, it is the most reliable spot to do the glitch with. And just a super quick note about the part of the method at the beginning where you use the waterfowl dance to go from the pillar to the cliff. There is actually a death wall there, like hanging out in the air, that you could hit if you use the second part of the waterfowl dance. Just if you travel forward too much in the air, you'll hit that death wall, and so the way to avoid that is just to use the first part of the waterfowl dance only, and then just allow your character to drop onto the cliff where you're supposed to be. And that way you won't have to worry about accidentally dying and having to restart the method, even though dying and having to restart is not that big of a deal because getting to this spot is not very difficult. Just make sure you do kind of what I did in the video clip. If that's confusing to you, just watch what I do and repeat my actions, and you should be able to pull it off in just a couple of tries. And then after the glitch works and then Radagon kills you, you can just grab the Sight of Grace and you will have essentially skipped the fight. So if you're happy with that, congratulations, and if you want to actually learn the fight and figure out how to beat these guys the normal way with melee and everything, then the next part of the video is what you'll want to pay attention to. If you ask me what the best weapon to use to beat these guys is, I would say unequivocally the best weapon is the Star Fists, either cold infused with like Cragblade or fire infused with Flaming Strike. These weapons have an extremely fast charged heavy attack, and you're going to be doing a lot of staggering with them, so they also just objectively have a huge amount of damage compared to other weapons you could potentially be using. So if you don't have any ideas of what you might want to use on these guys, then this is what I would recommend. And for the Elden Beast specifically, you probably will want to have Black Flame Tornado on just a short spear in your back pocket, because the Elden Beast has a huge health pool and it is a little bit of a slog to fight him, and Black Flame Tornado just completely rips through his health and makes it very fast to beat him. And you get a ton of really long punish windows to be able to use the fully charged Black Flame Tornado, like for example after you stagger the Elden Beast with your Star Fists or something like that. It really is just the best way to do a ton of damage to him very quickly on a level 1 character with no weapon upgrades. I do have a full fight example at the end of this previous video of me defeating Radagon and the Elden Beast, and I do use Black Flame Tornado in that clip, so you can see exactly how effective it is when you get to that point in the video. But spoiler alert, it's extremely effective. And when I'm going through the moveset guide here in just a second, when I'm referring to different punish windows that pop up after certain attacks, I will be referring to like the timings of the wooden club, just because that's the default starting weapon of the Wretch. And I always just talk about movesets from the reference point of using the starting weapon, so just keep that in mind so it's not confusing. Radagon has a whole bunch of hammer swing attacks, and they all basically start with a starting swing, and then they can have a couple different things that happen after that starting swing. And then they all also chain into each other, so you'll have an attack and it can have two potential follow-ups, and then after the follow-up that happens, you'll have a different attack that can have two potential other follow-ups, and that's kind of how his hammer swing chains work. He also has two phases, and in his second phase, his attacks create like ground area of effects that you have to avoid. But they're not a big deal because you avoid his attacks basically in the same way in both phases. And the first hammer combo move I wanted to go over is this backswing, and this has two potential follow-ups that are both kind of dangerous. The first is just another swing that hits the ground, and after that you can get like a heavy attack in, and in phase 2 you kind of want to dodge a little bit away from him and only punish it with a light attack because of that ground AoE that happens that you're trying to avoid. But the second follow-up that can happen is a quick holy spike throw, and this is like probably his most dangerous follow-up just because it happens so quickly. You just have to be aware that this is one of the times that he can throw those holy spikes, and so just anytime he uses that backswing, you just have to be prepared for him to potentially do that. And if he does, you can't really punish it because he can start doing other chains that happen very quickly after that, so you'll have to continue to dodge. Another hammer combo starter move he can do is this fast uppercut, which can be followed by another quick downward cut afterwards, and you really can't punish that one. It's just too quick, and then some things can happen afterwards that are very quick as well. But every once in a while he will do like a really slow downward cut where he charges up his hammer and then creates a gigantic area of effect on the ground after he slams his hammer down, and for that one you can dodge it and then do a charged heavy attack. You can also start with this diagonal swing, which can then be followed by another swing and then a hammer slam afterwards that creates an area of effect that you can just do a light attack after to punish. But he can also just hesitate for a second and then do a different downward hammer swing that creates a different area of effect on the ground, and for that one you can do a charged heavy attack. And after he does one of those like downward hammer slams, he can also follow that up occasionally with another hammer slam that's also after a small delay. And anytime he ever does that follow-up hammer slam, after that you can also do a charged heavy attack. As long as you kind of dodge it a little bit early and start your charged heavy attack kind of early, like immediately after you dodge, you usually have enough time. That's more so a phase 1 thing though, because in phase 2 he can teleport away and you have to be kind of ready for that. When he's at sort of a medium distance away, which he will be occasionally because he likes to teleport around, he will do this like fast approaching swing, which can kind of catch you off guard a little bit. But he also has a slower version of this approaching swing, and when he does the slow version, you just dodge backwards and do a light attack, and that's a good punish for it. But when he does the fast one, you really can't punish it at all. He can do follow-ups to that are too quick for you to be able to get a light attack in. Like for example this stomp. He does this stomp during chains, but also just straight out of his idle animation. He'll just do it anytime really. And you can either jump over it or dodge through it, but if you do dodge through it, you probably don't want to punish because he will very often do like a forward thrust. That's not going to happen every time he does the stomp, but it will happen, I would say, probably the majority of the time. I would say his AI just says follow this up with either the forward thrust or something else. So I guess it's probably like a 50-50 whether it's the forward thrust or not. He also has this imbued hammer smash where he holds his hammer above his head for a second and it glows, and then he does a hammer smash and then either that follow-up hammer slam that we talked about earlier that you can do a charged heavy attack after, or he'll do a follow-up hammer swing instead. And for that swing you can either dodge through it and then do a regular heavy attack after you get behind him, or you can run around him as he does the swing, and then after he like fires it off, you can do a charged heavy attack. And he can also do this imbued hammer smash when he's in the air. He flies up in the air and does it from like floating. And for that one, it always has one of two follow-ups, either a hammer like slam or a hammer swing, and they both create area of effects on the ground that you have to avoid. But you can avoid them both in the same exact way. Just dodge the first area of effect and then run away, sprint away, and then jump over the second one. He can also do this kind of charged, imbued hammer swing, which if he's standing when he does it, you can just run around behind him and get 2 charged heavy attacks in, so it's a really good punish window. Or you can dodge forward to end up behind him and do a charged heavy attack and then a light attack. And then he can also do this from being in the air, this imbued hammer swing. So when he does it from floating in the air, then you have to kind of dodge through him to end up behind him, and then you'll want to be really careful trying to punish him, because when the AoE explodes on the ground after he does that move, it can hit you even if you're behind him. So you just have to be really careful and just wait for it to explode before you do like a light attack. Really, I would use that opportunity to like drink a blue flask or something. He also has this grab attack that he can do pretty much any time during combos or just out of his neutral position. And you can usually get 2 light attacks in before he does the grab, and then after he attempts his grab, you can do a charged heavy attack. And he's also got like a parry stance that he enters whenever you throw ranged attacks at him. I'm using the Flaming Strike Ash of War because it counts as a ranged attack, so it makes him enter his parry stance. And when you hit him when he's in his parry stance, he's just going to deflect whatever you hit him with and then return fire with the golden spikes just very, very quickly. So anytime he's in the stance, expect that to happen. You'll have to dodge very quickly. Or you can just wait for him to stop doing that and then attack him. Basically, this just means you can't use ranged attacks on him and you have to fight him with melee. Something else you can do when he's flying up in the air is this Gold Breaker move, and whenever he does this, you can dodge forward and then do a charged heavy attack on him. You can see that it's different from the other like hammer swing moves that he uses when he's flying up in the air, because this one he has his hammer underneath him, and the other ones he has his hammer held up above his head. But yeah, this Gold Breaker move, he doesn't have any follow-ups after this, so you can always do a charged heavy attack. And he can also do a Stomp Gold Breaker, which he always does when he's around 1/3 of his health, and after he does this, he enters his phase 2, where he starts doing area of effects with his hammer swings and stuff like that, and starts teleporting around and whatnot. But to punish this one, you can do a jumping heavy when he does the stomp, and then dodge forward and do a charged heavy attack after he lands from the Gold Breaker. And then he can also do this triple ground smash move. He always does it when he's at about 2/3 of his health missing, and anytime he ever does this, as long as you punish it the most optimal way, you can always stagger him, as long as you're using a hammer type weapon or the Star Fists or something like that, something with a good amount of poise damage. You'll always be able to stagger him when you do this move, just by dodging forward, doing a light attack for the first smash, and then dodging forward and doing a charged heavy attack for the second smash, and then just unlocking the camera and running around in a circle around him. You don't have to unlock the camera, but it's just easier if you do. And then after he does his third smash, you can then do 2 charged heavy attacks at him, and that will stagger him. And in his phase 2, he has a whole bunch of extra holy attacks that he does at you, including this golden like area of effect on the ground that stays there for a second, like it's in a waffle pattern almost. And for that one, you just have to dodge backwards and avoid that area of effect on the ground and just stay out of it until it disappears, and it's just really a way for him to force you to make distance from him so that he can start throwing things at you. Like for example, the holy spikes, he can do that out of neutral. It's a very fast attack, and you always kind of have to expect it. And he can also do it when he's flying up in the air, but when he's up in the air doing the holy spikes, it's actually delayed by quite a bit, so you have to wait for him to throw them and just kind of dodge after what feels like a small delay. And he can also throw this holy spear at you when you're a little bit farther away, and with that one, you have to avoid the spear, and then you have to avoid the explosion, and then you can try to reapproach him afterwards, but a lot of times he'll follow that up with other things that he throws at you, like spikes or another spear. Really, you just have to wait for him to stop throwing stuff and then start re-engaging you with his hammer so that you can continue to punish him. He also has 2 different teleports that he uses in phase 2, and whenever he teleports, when he disappears, that does not do any damage, so you don't have to worry about him disappearing and having to dodge that. But when he reappears, he will create a small hitbox around him, so you do have to dodge him reappearing from his teleport. teleport. And when you're locked on, you can see where he's going to reappear, and if it appears right up on top of you, that means there's going to be a small delay, and then you'll have to dodge, and then you'll have to dodge again because he's going to reappear and then immediately start attacking with his hammer. But if you see that he's going to reappear a little bit further away from you because the lock-on dot is further away, then he's going to reappear much faster, and he's going to probably start throwing things at you after he does, so you just have to be aware of that. Basically, just to recap, two versions of his teleport. One of them is farther away and happens much faster. One of them is right up on top of you and happens after a small delay, like as in he reappears after a small delay. And for both of them, you have to be immediately ready to start dodging things because no matter which one he uses, he has very fast follow-ups that happen right away. And finally, when you get a critical hit on him, it does take him a little while to recover from that, so you do have enough time to do like a flaming strike or some kind of buff to your weapon, a crag blade, or like drink a blue flask or something. Getting a critical hit is a good opportunity to do something. And then after you beat Radagon, you're confronted with having to fight the Elden Beast directly afterwards, and the Elden Beast is kind of annoying a little bit, but he's not that big of a deal. He's got 2 or 3 moves that are a little bit tricky to dodge, but mostly all of his moves are pretty easy to punish. When the battle first starts, if you just immediately run up and start whacking him right in his chest, he'll immediately start with this fire breath move every single time, and if you have a hammer type weapon or your crag blade star fists, you can get enough charged heavy attacks out on him to immediately stagger him right at the beginning of the fight, so go ahead and do that, and then you can pull out your black flame tornado stick and do a whole bunch of damage to him, and then do it again if you want, or you can take the critical hit. But if he does the fire breath when you're just in the battle randomly, like if you're kind of far away or whatever, you just have to lock onto him and then sprint sideways until it's over, and sprinting sideways will avoid it. If you're super close, you just gotta run behind him and then start doing charged heavies while behind him. Another kind of bread and butter attack that you'll want to see all the time that you can very easily punish is this double slash, where he either does another slash at the end or a slam, depending on how far you are away from him. And usually if you're running right up to him, you'll see the slam most of the time, because that's what he uses when you're close to him. So usually the punish for this move is just to dodge the first 2 swings and then run up to be on his right side where the slam is not going to hit you, and then you can do 2 charged heavy attacks. He also does this reposition sword slash attack where he kind of like swims away a little bit and then does a sword slash. And that move does have a follow-up if you remain a little bit far away from him after he does the first slash, but usually you're just going to try to dodge that slash forward and then go do like a jumping heavy attack and then a regular heavy attack if you can. And when you're doing that, there's not going to be any follow-up. He also does this sword thrust out of his idle animation, and also after a couple other sword moves that he uses if you're at sort of a medium distance away. And it's really easy to punish, just dodge it and then do a jumping heavy attack. He'll also do this reposition move kind of all the time, where he just swims away and just is somewhere else in the arena so that he can do long-ranged attacks or something like that. And a lot of times he's gonna just pass right by you as he's doing his repositioning move, and usually when he does that, you can just do a light attack and just whack him as he goes. He'll also try to grab you basically anytime when you're kind of close to him, and the grab is really nice to see because it's very easy to see coming. It takes a little while for the actual hitbox to appear, so you have time to mentally prepare for it, and then it's easy to dodge, and then after the dodge you can do 2 charged heavy attacks, so it does help a lot with building up the poise damage to try to get critical hits. And then sometimes he'll do this flying sword slash, where he just flies sideways in the air and then does a really bright glowing sword slash after a second. And to dodge this one, you just want to dodge towards him right when he does the slash, and then he's gonna swim towards you after a second, and when he does that, you can usually go up and do like a jumping heavy attack. He also has a bunch of different like nebula attacks where he creates a nebula floating in the air and then it explodes. And the first one of those is this fast hand slam, and he does this when you're right in front of him. It comes out kind of fast, and you just have to memorize its timing so that you can dodge it when it happens, and then you can just do a charged heavy attack afterwards. And then he also does this supernova nebula attack here where he just creates a gigantic explosion after a second, and to dodge this one, you just have to not be standing where the explosion is going to happen. And the best way to punish it is just to sprint forward when he starts using this attack so that you end up underneath him physically when he does the explosion, and you can do a bunch of charged heavy attacks when you're under there. Or even like a fully charged Black Flame Tornado if you're really quick with it, because he does stay stunned for a little while after this attack. And then he has this close nebula throw where he kind of drags his arm across the ground and it creates a big old cloud in front of him that explodes after a second and moves forward a little bit. And then he's got this far nebula throw where he creates a really long nebula that kind of stretches across the arena and then explodes after a second. And to dodge that one, you just have to sprint sideways and let it explode kind of next to you. And when you are sort of far away from him, he's very fond of doing this sword beam attack where he kind of swings his sword 4 times and creates 4 beams that launch at you. And this move is actually really easy to dodge. You just have to dodge twice really quickly and then twice more after a small delay each time. You don't want to dodge the sword swings, you want to dodge the projectiles that come out of the sword swing. So you kind of dodge maybe a second after the sword swings. To make it easy, you just want to watch for the projectiles to come and then dodge that. And then when you're close up to him, a couple of like sword glowy special attacks you can do include this ground stab explosion where he kind of stabs his sword into the ground and it pulses with like holy light, and those pulses do some damage, so you have to continue to dodge those like pulses. And then you just have to end up outside of the range of the explosion. Afterwards you can go and do like a jumping heavy attack and a charged heavy attack and go from there. But the point is, this is a big sphere, so you can dodge in any direction to avoid it, but if you go forwards you can end up in a good position to be behind him and punish him afterwards. And then he has a different sword glowing plunging attack that happens a whole bunch of times instead of once with an explosion. And he'll kind of stab his sword into the ground a bunch of times quickly, and then after a bunch of quick sword stabs he'll do a sword swing, and that is the combo that he does when he kind of starts like that. And the best way to punish this move is to dodge forward and to the left twice to avoid those 2 first initial sword stabs, and then sprint forward and to the left until he starts his sword swing, like the final swing that he does right at the end of the combo. And then when he starts that, you can start charging up a couple of charged heavy attacks and you can get him a couple times, like 3 times actually. It's kind of a nice punish window. And then there's a few different ways that he can shoot a bunch of holy spears at you. One is the ascending holy spear shoot, and to dodge that one you just have to run forward and to one side, basically running diagonally towards him, and if you do that they won't hit you. And then he can also kind of swim sideways while he's shooting the sword spears, or he can stand still and do it. And for the one where he's standing still or swimming sideways, you just have to either run in a little circle if you're directly underneath him, and that will avoid all of the spears. Or if you're kind of far away from him, you just have to run directly parallel to him, like to the side, and that will avoid the sword spears as well if you're farther away. He also does this golden rings move when he's at about 1/3 of his health and then like 2/3 of his health missing. The first time he does it will only have 1 golden ring, and then the second time he does it will probably have 3 golden rings. And when he starts the move, you just have to do like a 180-degree turn and start sprinting in the complete opposite direction, and then you can jump over those rings when they appear. And then after you jump over the rings, continue to run backwards because he's going to pop out of the water right in front of you, and you can do either a charged heavy attack if you're really accurate with it, or you can do a jumping heavy, and that usually is a smarter idea because it's easier to hit him with that. And really his most problematic move, I would say, is the Wave of Gold, this move that he's doing right now. It's just got a really huge lingering hitbox, so if you're at a medium distance, it's really hard to dodge. And he does usually use this move when you're at a medium distance, so it is pretty problematic. But if you're able to, you can just run right up to him when he does it, and it won't hit you if you're standing right up against him, and you can just do a bunch of charge heavy attacks. That's definitely the safest way to go about dodging it, but if you're at a more of a medium distance and you can't run right up to him, then you're going to have to outspace the sword swing, and then you're going to have to dodge through the wave after it happens. And this is a super precise dodge if you're doing medium rolling, but it is possible. You just have to wait for him to do the sword swing, and then directly after the swing, less than a second after he does the swing, you have to dodge forward, and that will avoid the wave that happens after the swing. And as long as you waited the appropriate amount of time between the swing and the dodge, then you'll dodge through the entire wave, even though it stays on the field for like a second. Basically, you're going to use the entire duration
1 of your invincibility frames that you get from your like medium roll dodge to get through that thing. And then this move here, the Elden Stars, is I guess his most infamous move, but it's not that big of a deal when it happens. He's always going to do it when he gets to half health, so you kind of always know when it's going to happen. And when it does happen, you have to be standing in front of him, and then when he spawns the golden ball into the air, you have to run underneath his armpit to the right, and then just continue to sprint in that direction away from him until the golden ball disappears. It's going to like follow you, but as long as you continue to sprint away, it's not going to be able to catch up to you, and then you'll be able to reapproach him after it disappears and continue the fight from there. That's the only way to avoid getting hit by it, and if he spawns it into the arena like later on in the battle, and if you're not directly in front of him when he does that, you're basically guaranteed to get hit by this. There's no way to avoid it if you don't run under his armpit at the right time and use that method to avoid it. And in that case, the only way to avoid taking damage would be to use the Crimson Whirl bubble tier in your Flask of Wondrous Physic, because that will avoid all of the damage that this Holy Elden Stars thing does, and it'll turn it into healing instead of damage, and basically it'll allow you to tank the whole thing. But that's only a one-time use, because you only have one Wondrous Physic per fight, so you won't be able to use it at the beginning to boost your damage. You have to save it for this particular situation if this is your strategy. And for that reason, I would always recommend doing the running under the armpit thing instead, because you want to use your flask for damage. You're really only going to see Elden Stars a second time, like very, very rarely. It didn't happen really basically at all when I was testing for this video. Anyway, the rest of this video is just a clip of me defeating Radagon and the Elden Beast with the wooden club and Black Flame Tornado, just to show you what it looks like when you put all of the strategies that I discussed in this video all together. I just feel like watching other people do hitless runs when I'm learning how to do one myself is useful to me, so I can see the flow of the battle. So that's kind of what I kind of hope to convey with this clip here as well. And if you want to see more Rune Level 1, Weapon Level 0 stuff, guides, and whatnot in the future, feel free to subscribe to this channel. Thanks.